The top 10 of board gaming from Roll and Move Reviews.
I think that was perfect.
Yeah!
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Roll and Move Reviews and a new edition of the top 10s of board gaming. Today we're going to take a little side trip off the games that we usually cover because my number 9 list is the top 10 non-gamer games. I'm talking party games, family games, the kind of games you're going to play with your larger extended circle of non-gamer hobbyists, family and friends. And with the holidays coming up, I figured this would be a great time to show these games some love because I know me personally, this is the time of year I play these games the most. These aren't my favorite games in the world. These aren't the games that I would pick first if I had the choice, but they're the games that everybody that I get together with on the holidays can agree on. And even though it may not be the greatest pure gaming experience, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun experience, a lot of fun memories I create with my family and friends. So if you're one of those snobby gamers who turn their nose up at these games like this, stick around, watch the video, because odds are in the next month during the holidays, you're going to be in a situation where you want to play Twilight Imperium 3, but everybody else in the group wants to play Apples to Apples. So watch this list and maybe you'll find a game that even you'll like. I'm filming this in my dad's kitchen because I figured this is the kind of place where these games get played. You don't play it in some sacred gaming room or hall designed for special gaming events. You just play it in a place where friends and family get together, pull out one of these games, and have a good time together. So let's take a look at the list. What's number 10? Number 10 game on my non-gamer list is Scattergories. This is a classic game from the 80s, and basically what you do at Scattergories is you roll a big, I think 20-sided dice that has a different letter on every side, and whatever letter you roll, you have to fill out the list you're given with words beginning with that letter. So it may be things like actors, or types of cars, or song titles, and you have to fill them in with that letter. It's not a trivia game, so you don't have to test your knowledge, feel like you're taking a test. You just have to know a lot of words and a lot of stuff. So fun little game. I always enjoyed trying to get creative, coming up with the best words, because you only score if you have a unique word that nobody else got. So coming up with a word is easy, but coming up with a word that only you're going to have, that's the real challenge of this game. I always thought it was a lot of fun. It's a game I don't own anymore. Kind of wish I did. It'd be easy to pull out and play with a lot of different people. But that's my number 10 game, Scattergories. My number 9 game is Outburst. And the version I have is Outburst Remix, but from my memory it plays pretty similar to the original version. And in Outburst, you just give the team a category, and whoever's reading the question takes one of these little mystery cards, slides in the secret decoder here, and it may be a category like types of cars. And the other team just has to start shouting out types of cars. You don't need to give any more details. There's no other conditions. Just list things. Just give a list of 10. And so it's really fun because people start screaming stuff, people giving good answers, people giving some not so good answers, some kind of stupid answers, getting made fun of by the other team or by their teammates. And there's always one or two responses on the card that just are really obscure and people always get mad about. Like, why is that on there? That's a dumb response. That shouldn't be on there. My answer should be on there before that. So just a lot of bickering and banter. Very high energy game. Gets everybody going. Gets everybody screaming, yelling. Gets the competitive juices flowing. So it's a lot of fun for a big group. That's Outburst. Number 8 game on my list is one I know will not get a great response from a lot of you because it is reviled by a lot of people in the gaming community. But that game is Trivial Pursuit. Now hear me out, this goes back to when I was a little kid. One Christmas, all the adults, suddenly my family, my parents, their friends, other grown-ups, start talking about this game called Trivial Pursuit. Everyone wants to play it, see what it's all about. It was a big rage. I remember seeing stories about it on the news. That Christmas, the kids had Cabbage Patch Kids and the grown-ups had Trivial Pursuit. So my family went out and bought it. And at the time I was probably a little too young to participate, but I'd sit on people's lap and just watch and observe. And I had fun, being a part of that competitive environment of just, pitting my knowledge versus yours and seeing who knows the most. Yeah, the mechanics of the game aren't perfect. The way you move around the board is clunky and collect the pie pieces. And yeah, that's not great. But just that question and answer format, that almost game show type format, for me is a lot of fun. There's been tons of different versions of Trivial Pursuit. I got this one, Bet You Know It. A little different take on the game. I have my Star Wars edition of Trivial Pursuit. So there's been tons of different versions of Trivial Pursuit. This one I have here. This is, probably one of the original versions that came out. I keep this around. You can see how worn out the box is. I mean, this is antique. This is, like I said, most likely first edition. Keep this around for sentimental value. If we played it, it'd be kind of silly. It'd be very dated. Be lots of questions about Dynasty and the Reagan administration and things like that. So you want to get your hands on an updated version. You want to play in teams. You want to split your teams up, between genders and ages. Have a lot of diversity in each team so everybody can contribute. And it's a lot of fun. The game itself, mechanically, isn't wonderful, but just that competition, that back and forth of, okay, who's going to figure this question out? Who's going to surprise us by answering this one? So I think it's a great game, and I have a lot of fun with it. Trivial Pursuit. My number 7 game is one that I think is a little more obscure. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it or referencing it too often, and that game is Visualize. In Visualize, you get a big pile of these chunky dice that have very simple images on them, and you roll them all, and based on what images come up in the roll, you have to take all those dice and try to make compound words out of the images. I have a house, and I have a key, so maybe together that makes the phrase house key. Not the greatest example in the world, but you see the point of the game and how it works. It's very fun to sit down and see how everybody's minds work and how they interpret the different images. Because the images are so simple and so vague, there's a lot of different things you could do. I mean, like for a tree, you could do tree, or you could do leaf, or you could do bark, or anything like that. So it's fun to see what people come up with. It's fun to argue and debate, how far you can push the word. Someone might say hot dog. That's not a dog, that's obviously a cat. You can't turn that into a dog. What's wrong with you? So it's a lot of fun doing that, coming up with the words. I enjoy word games and word puzzles, things like that. That is Visualize. The number 6 game on this list is Cranium. And this isn't the original edition of Cranium. I no longer own that. This is Cranium Pop 5. Game that kind of takes the best elements of the original game and condenses them, but it basically does the same thing. The thing I love about Cranium is it takes aspects from a bunch of different games and combines it all into one. So, okay, if you like trivia, you can answer trivia questions. If you don't like that, okay, do you like Pictionary? You can draw. All right, you want to do that thing, but you don't want to draw, you'd rather sculpt it in clay, you can do that. How about something like Name That Tune? Can you whistle or can you hum? So there's really something in that game for everybody to do, and everything, something that everybody at the table can enjoy and be good at and feel like they're contributing to the game. There's also been a ton of different spin-offs, including this one, and they all kind of do that same thing where it's like a hodgepodge of a bunch of different games. I know a lot of people want to play it. It's a game that's easy for me in a group of non-gamers to get to the table because, like I said, everybody can do something in that game. Everybody can find something in the game that they enjoy and that they want to do. So that's my number 6 favorite non-gamer game, Cranium. The number 5 game on my list is Taboo. And you see here, my box is Celebrity Taboo, but I think I have several editions of the game in here. Taboo, you're very simply just given a series of words. And you have to get your teammates to guess those words without using the 5 words that are probably most associated with the word you're trying to get them to guess. If I had to get you to guess the word carrot, I probably wouldn't be able to say vegetable or orange or rabbit or bugs. Things like that are very closely associated. You got to work around and try to communicate that to your team without using those very common words. It's a very frustrating game. There's a lot of anxiety of trying to just get that moment. You get that charades or Pictionary moment where it's like, I've given you every clue that I could possibly give you. You should know this. Why aren't you getting this? And then to be the guy on the other team, supervising that person, knowing the clue they have, and just watching them struggle and the other team struggle to try to guess it. It's hilarious. And just that idea of trying to get inside people's head and communicate information to them when you have this huge limitation there. It's a lot of fun. Really fun game to play. It's even a fun game to watch. And if there's nothing else we can say about Taboo, we can say it goes down to history as having the most obnoxious component in the history of all board games ever. Number 4 game on my list is one that I'm sure is going to elicit more gamer hate because gamers don't like games based on DVDs. And I'll admit there are tons of really terrible DVD-based games out there. But my number 4 non-gamer game I think does it very well, and that is Seen It. I've mentioned before, I love trivia, I also love movies, and I love movie trivia. And this game is a lot of fun. The DVD plays itself. It runs the game like a game show. Some questions are based on the DVD, some based on cards that come with the game. But they're all a lot of fun and really, for my family anyway, get our competitive juices flowing. And we play this, we split into 2 teams, and everybody goes at it. The best part of the game, out of all the different categories that you have, there's a lot of different diverse categories, but the best one is where it's called Play All, everybody watches a scene from a movie, and once the scene's over, you have to answer whatever question they give. So you might watch a 2-minute scene, and the question may be, what's the name of this movie? Or who was the actor that was talking in the scene? Or it may be something ridiculous like, what color shirt was the guy that walked by wearing? Or how many times did they say the word no in this scene? So everybody's on the edge of their seat just trying to take in the entire scene. And then the question comes up, everybody yells an answer, and everybody's bickering. It's just a lot of fun. And it's just crazy, and everybody goes nuts. And I just really love playing this game. There's tons of different versions. I have a Marvel version. My wife, God help us all, has the Twilight Edition. So there's lots of different versions. I would recommend, if you have a group of players who all have the same level of knowledge of whatever version you're getting, whether it's, Marvel or The Simpsons or whatever it might be, I'd say get it, but otherwise play the general version, because if everybody doesn't have the same level of knowledge about a very specific version of the game, then no one's really going to have fun with it. But it is a great game. It's tons of fun. If you like movies, you like movie trivia, you definitely want to check out Seen It. My number 3 game is one I unfortunately no longer own. It's a game from my childhood, and that game is Fireball Island. When I was a kid, the choices for mass market kids games weren't great. You had Monopoly and Life for the roll and move games where you just saw who can get around the board the fastest. And then you had weird concept games. I remember a lot of games based on throwing up, like making somebody throw up or stuffing something with food till it threw up. So just a lot of weird, gross out games like that. So there wasn't a whole lot of fun to be had in board games until Fireball Island came along. It was this really cool adventure, like kind of Indiana Jones style game where you're moving around this 3D plastic board with bridges and hills and mountains and rivers you had to climb around. And there were little marbles that would get knocked around that were like fireballs that might knock you down or knock down the bridge you're on. Just a lot of really cool, fun stuff. And this was the game that, before I'd ever heard of role-playing games, before I've ever heard of any kind of like tabletop hobby games, this was the game that showed me that board games can incite your imagination, that you can have an adventure playing a board game. Even back then, I was able to learn that idea through Fireball Island. And I mean, it took me years before I found anything like it again, but I always remember that game fondly and how much fun I had playing that. So that's number 3, Fireball Island. Let's see a reprint. The number 2 game on my list is probably the newest game, and that is Geek Out. Now, Geek Out might be a little bit of a cheat based on the other games I've been talking about so far, because even though based on complexity and game style, this does qualify as a party game, odds are it's only going to be your game group that you can get to play with you. Either that group or some other circle of geek friends. Odds are you're not going to be able to talk grandma into playing Geek Out with you. And if you can, you got a pretty awesome grandma. Because this game is all about geek knowledge. The game is simply a stack of cards with a bunch of different categories. You have sci-fi and fantasy and gaming and comic books, just every spectrum of geekdom. And there's no trivia questions, it doesn't really ask you for information. It's basically reverse name that tune. The card may ask you, name 4 starships from the Star Trek series. And who's ever turning this has the opportunity to say, yeah, I'll name 4. Next player could say, I'll name 5. Next player may pass. Somebody may say, I'll name 7. So whoever hits the highest number after everybody passes has to name that many of that item. If they do it, they score a point. If they fail, they lose 2 points. And the first person to 5 point wins. It's that simple. Very easy game, just about trying to out-geek your friends and prove how much geek knowledge you have. And you really kind of get to the point where you're like, wow, do I really have this much useless knowledge floating around in my head? Can I really name that many species of aliens from Star Trek? For the right group of people, this game is probably more exclusive than any other game I've mentioned just because of the subject matter. But if you get with that group and you kind of go head-to-head with that and just try to prove who the biggest geek is, it's a lot of fun. My favorite thing about this game is it takes the worst part of every trivia game and eliminates it. What is that worst part? The worst part of a trivia game is when somebody else's turn and they get that one question that you could just nail and you know it. And you're like, oh, why can't I get this question on my turn? In Geek Out, you get to participate in every question. So if it's your category, it's the one you're the master of, then you're going to have the opportunity to shine there no matter what. It's a really fun game. Like I said, smaller possible audience to play it with, but definitely want to give it a try, Geek Out. And finally, my number 1 non-gamer game is Dixit. Now, as my number 1, this might be another little bit of a cheat because Dixit is a game that really walks that fine line between gamer and non-gamer games. At the very least, it's a game that a lot of gamers accept and can play and enjoy, even though it's a family game or a party game. And it is a great family-style game. You take a handful of cards like this, with all this really neat-looking interesting artwork, and you pick a card out of your hand. You give a clue based on it. You put it face down in front of you. Then everybody else has to look at their cards and find a card that best matches the clue you gave. Then those cards are mixed together, displayed face up, and everybody has to try to guess your card based on that clue. If everybody guesses your card, you don't get any points. If nobody guesses your card, you don't get any points. You have to give us a clue that's subtle enough that not everybody will get it, but it's not so obvious that everybody can jump right on it. So you got to find a middle ground there, and that's really the strategy of the game. And it's just a lot of fun to see how people interpret, try and get people's heads. You know, what did they mean by that clue? Usually, sometimes everybody has good cards, and that'll match that. Sometimes it's way off, but it's really fun to try to, like I said, get into people's heads and figure out, okay, what do they mean by that? What would this person play for that? What would that person do? The box says ages 8 or up. I started playing this with my kids when they were 4 or 5 years old because just looking at pictures and coming up with a word. Granted, they weren't great at it back then, but they could participate and have a good time. My only complaint about the game is that it's only 6 players maximum, and that's almost never enough. If I have a big group of players, everybody wants to play Dixit, and not everybody can. They need to put out a party version of Dixit that's 10 players, 12 players, because I know I and a lot of other people could easily fill that game to capacity. If you have a bigger group, everybody's going to want to play Dixit. It's kids, it's adults, it's just a lot of fun for everybody, and that's why it's my #1 non-gamer game, Dixit. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching number 9 of my top 10s of board gaming. Be sure to leave me a comment, tell me if I've sparked your interest in any of these games, and let me know what games you will be playing with your friends and family over the holiday season. Go watch number 10 on the list if you haven't already, and keep an eye out for 8 through 1 coming very soon. If you have an idea for a top 10 list you'd like to see me do, email it to me at rollandmovereviews@gmail.com, or just leave it in the comment section below. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and now you can follow us on Twitter. I'll have links for all that in the description. Make sure you're on top of everything so you don't miss out on any of our great content coming up in the future. Be sure to visit our sponsor website, alteregogames.net. Lots of stuff to buy this year. You got games to buy for the family. You got games to buy as gifts. Alter Ego Games, they are going to stretch your holiday board game budget, get you all the games you need at the prices you want. Be sure to watch our old videos on Facebook, YouTube, Board Game Geek, or the Alter Ego Games site. That's all I got for this time, guys. Like I said, number 8 in the list coming soon. Until then, have fun out there.